we're going to move on, and I have something very interesting to tell you, Mr. Raven. And this is something that I think a lot of people have been interested in, especially the team principals, because obviously the team principals found out. But I'm going to be saying it publicly for the first time. I used current performance of a team based on the budget they have left, the worth of their team, so this is like net worth, so including their drivers' values as well, and where the budget they started with. And I managed to figure out which team is performing proportionally the best. Proportionally? In comparison to where they should be, comparison to where they started, and which team will be performing the best. Now, Raven, you know the top 5, you do not know the rest. The viewers at home do not know wherever you are, do not know any of it, unless you're a team principal, so I'm going to be reading it out now. So number 1, as you know, is Alfa Romeo. No surprise there. I think they've been doing absolutely brilliantly. They started with the least amount of budget. They're currently 3rd in the OCC. That is something that they should be very, very happy with. Speaking of, I haven't got my app up, but that should be something they should be very, very happy with, because it's a fantastic position to be in. Number 2, similarly, Williams. I think Williams had their big moment in the sun at the start of the season because it looked like they took off quicker than Alfa Romeo. But they're sat 5th. The gap between them is about 100 points. I think they're doing fantastically. Stein has been cooking that team, and the fact that he reacted so quickly to losing Charlie with Cranks was brilliant. Number 3, Ferrari. I think it's impossible almost for Ferrari to be performing in proportion to where, or like the best in proportion to where they were, but to be leading the OCC by 100 points. Brilliant. 4, McLaren. Yeah,
200 points, actually, have you know. 200 points were leading. 196 were leading it by.
200?
196 in the overall.
You're completely right, yeah.
Know. And just to clarify, this is current position in relation to starting budget.
Starting budget, yeah. And how much their team is worth as well. So if they've got a rubbish team that's performing, like a cheap team that's performing very well.
Oh yes. The value of the lineup at the start of the season, the remaining budget, and then their current position is
correct. And then number 5, AlphaTauri. I think they've been doing very well in proportion to where we expected them to be. Fighting for the top 3, maybe top 2 is where we thought they would be. Okay, so number 6, because you do not know the bottom 5, and funnily enough, they are also the bottom 5 in the OCC. Who do you think it is? Who's the 6th best performing team? Or I mean, I guess it's 5th worst. I guess, but it depends how positive you are, from which perspective you see it.
So, I don't think it's Mercedes. Because Mercedes were one of the wealthiest at the start of the season, so I feel like
they started quite high.
Even though they're the highest of the bottom half of the table, I feel like how wealthy they were at the start of the season, I think they're not going to be that team. I think it's between Red Bull and Aston then, because they're 7th and 8th, and I think judging by both teams obviously in debt, I think Red Bull were really poor at the start of the season. Comparatively, so I'm going to go with Red Bull.
I think Red Bull was 5 or 6, 5th or 6th, I think.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Red Bull as the 6th team in their current performance compared to financial health, shall we say, table thing, whatever you want to call this equation.
You are incorrect. It is Aston Martin.
Damn. I knew it was one of the two. I knew it was one of them two. I went for a 50-50. God damn it, Neb and Banjo. This is what you do to me.
Aston Martin. I mean, they've almost been a slightly irrelevant team. They've definitely dropped off in the second half of the first half, as in they had a better 2023 than 2024. They are 2 points ahead of Haas, who have
second quarter
up in the second quarter. Yes. Which leads me on to number 7. You might be able to guess it from my previous point. Who do you think number 7 is?
Is it Red Bull?
No, it's Haas. 2 points
behind.
Haas. And they start.
Really?
It's Haas. It is Haas, number 7.
They were so broke. They were so broke at the start of the season.
They were, yeah. And Haas is an interesting one. And I'll tell you what my true opinions of it are. Because to be brutally honest, I didn't see much from Ben. I really didn't. I didn't rate Haas as a team much. I didn't think they had much going for them. Just a bit of a dead team I thought would come last or second last, third last, or whatever. They have picked it up. They got a 1-2 in quali this previous week. They got a 1-2 in the race. Complete domination in Spain Division 1. Kalik won by miles in Division 4 in Hungary. Ben won the last 2 races in Division 3. Haas are on fire. Like that, they're actually storming through the field. Yeah, so they overtook Alpine, who they briefly went behind. 2 points behind Aston Martin. I think they could potentially, but we'll talk about it in a minute, but I think they could get really, really high. Haas, currently 7th in terms of performances. I think they're going to torpedo past a few positions there. And they're gonna go up at this rate. If they're able to keep this rate up. That's my thoughts. Number 8. Who do you think is number 8 in terms of performances?
Is this one Red Bull? Because I think see, but the thing is, Mercedes are still 6th in the overall.
Are you sure you want to go Red Bull? Because you've gone for them twice and they've both been wrong.
See, okay, but if I don't go with them now and it is Red Bull, I'm going to be even more annoyed. So, okay.
You have to think about this.
Okay, I'm going to have to think about it. It won't be Alpine because Alpine were middle money, bottom of the table now. So I think they're going to be. But then are Alpine the worst performing overall? Or are Red Bull that bad? Are Mercedes that bad? So okay. So Mercedes are at the highest of the bottom half, but they were like third richest start of the season.
They did, yeah.
Red Bull are one below them, but were fourth or fifth richest.
I think because they were behind AlphaTauri.
See, interesting. So Red Bull are 2 positions down in money and only 1 position down on Mercedes. But I don't like this game anymore.
Don't forget Alpine. Don't forget Alpine.
But where were Alpine last season? They were what? 5th?
No. 5th was Red Bull, so they would have been 7th. Or did Williams beat them?
Are Mercedes that? I don't know. I don't know what equation you've been using, Mr. Avanash. I don't know what kind of mathematical witchcraft.
Just comparing them. I've just been looking at them with me eyeballs. Comparing them.
Have you put Mercedes bottom?
I haven't put them anywhere. None of them other than Haas and Aston Martin, none of them are really close. They're all kind of obvious. That's a clue for you. The only reason Aston were above Haas was the 2 points they have in OCC. Other than that, they were all relatively set in their positions.
I'm still. So people are both screaming at me right now. Okay, fuck Red Bull.
Put your votes in, ladies and gentlemen. Who is the 8th best team going for Mercedes? Are you sure?
I don't like this game.
Are you sure you're going for Mercedes? I'll give you a chance to think about your decision here. Who is the 8th best team or most performing team in the league? Are you ready? You've locked it in. Final answer.
I'm going Alpine. Lock it in. Why not?
Lock in Alpine.
Yes.
It's Red Bull.
Fucking Banjo and his team.
Yes, Red Bull are number 8. Started pretty strong.
I knew it.
Like I said, they you literally did. Literally, you didn't vote for Red Bull, the one that it mattered. They were locking horns with Tauri. They had Alfa Romeo creeping up on their backside, and they have decided to flop, getting overtaken by an extra 2 positions, Mercedes and Williams.
I got psychology there. I got out psychology. I don't like it.
I said, are you sure? Do you want your final answer to be? Do you want it to be Red Bull? But we will go.
I should believe myself. That's the life lesson. I should just trust my gut instinct.
Yeah. If you believed in yourself, you would have got one right. You're completely right. We're going to move on to the final one. The final one. Who do you think finished 9th, and who do you think is performing the worst of all the teams on the grid? Now, you said both Mercedes and Alpine as your answer. We went for Mercedes and then final answered with Alpine. So it could, I don't know where your mindset's at. It could literally be either of them.
I think Mercedes second worst, Alpine worst.
You're wrong. That's mental. Mercedes are on the same points as Red Bull. How did you say? Yeah, Mercedes are the lowest performing team.
I don't like this game.
Got everyone wrong.
I don't like this game.
Yeah, I mean, Alpine, as difficult as their season is being, Mercedes went from being the 3rd biggest team and fighting with the front boys to being on the same points as Red Bull and having Aston Martin in their wing mirrors. Not so great. Mercedes are the worst team. I mean, they've picked it up. Don't get me wrong, they've picked it up, but it has not been the pickup that maybe they wanted it to be.
We'll say worst team. We'll say biggest flop. We'll say biggest flop.
Biggest flop. It has been the biggest flop. Well, I will say, like I said, they are picking it up. It's interesting that they've done the opposite to what Red Bull have done. As Red Bull started high, Mercedes started low, and they've kind of crossed. And Haas have really picked up as well, so I'm excited to see. It's one of my favourite teams to see what they do in the second half of the season. But to conclude the podcast, I'm going to talk about a couple of headlines that I'm going to throw you at, Mr. Raven, and I want to know what you think of them. First of all is a bit close to home for yourself. Can Ferrari be caught in the overall Constructors' Championships? Currently, they're leading the Constructors' Championship in Division 1 and 2. They're P3 in 3 and 4. The gap to McLaren is just under 200 points. And they have lost Vlad, so it is a shock to the team, but they have gained Charlie in the process. Do you believe that McLaren or another team could catch up to Ferrari in the 8 remaining weekends we have?
No. That
concludes the question.
concludes the question. Yes, no. The team has got arguably stronger, and it's. I mean, the only thing I see different happening is that we don't continue to pull away the same gap. And there'll be more weekends where we're not the best team on the grid in terms of point scoring from that weekend. But yeah, I mean, Alfa Romeo 300 points behind, McLaren 196, Tauri 330. That's the top. That's the 3 teams below us. I mean, if we don't win this overall now, then I should just resign. Honestly,
it would be an enormous flop, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that put me as the last team on that scale. My days. Yeah, I like not to like discredit any other team. I just feel like the gap we've got now should almost be unrecoverable for other teams. It should be a fight per second.
Yes, I agree with that. My next headline, which might have a bit more talking points, because this is probably my favourite, and I hope this is my favourite, and I think this is where the viewers are going to lean forward in their seats. Yes, I'm talking to you, Mr. Matt. It is Alfa versus Alfa. We have Alfa Romeo versus AlphaTauri in the OCC. It is a battle for P3 currently, and to be honest, the battles didn't end in the mid-season. As you can see, shots were being fired in the signing announcements, because the first one, of course, was Vlad, a big name being signed into Alfa Romeo, and AlphaTauri, of course, having Boom Boy as well. All I'm going to say, in terms of signing announcements, is there has been rumours of Baldy moving across to AlphaTauri. Have you heard about those rumours, and what do you think about them?
I've heard of very few rumblings. Am I that excited by the transfer? I don't know. I think Baldy's doing well, but he's still showing his same flaws and mishaps that he had throughout previous seasons and this season. He's not that great at managing a race overall. I mean, look at Monza, where I think stayed out and then he was on like 5% battery for like 20 laps or something. He kind of just like drops all his pace early, and if he doesn't pull away, then he's a bit screwed. I think Tauri going to really have their work cut out from. I mean, I worked with him as well. He was in Ferrari at one point in KRL. I know the mountain that there is to climb. In terms of the work that goes into him, but then actually maybe I shouldn't be saying this. Go for it, AlphaTauri. Go for it. He's a great sign. There's no work to be done there at all. There's go for it. He's going to secure that Div 4. And this is no slander on Baldy. I just know what I know what kind of work needs to go into getting him in that championship kind of positions. Both in like a mentality and as a driver, and obviously I have a very strong affiliation with Alfa Romeo. Dodo being my prodigy, shall we say, in league racing, or my first prodigy. He's gone on to being a team principal of Alfa Romeo. Obviously we have the sister link as well. I want the ideal world for me is Ferrari P1, Alfa Romeo P2 in the overall. I don't know if they'll catch McLaren. I think McLaren will recover mid-season and stop the gap from coming down between the third and themselves. But I do think that Alfa can take the fight to Tauri, and I want to see it continue because it is a great fight.
It is.
So yeah.
Currently, the gap, like you said, about in between the two teams is 23 points. The gap between them and McLaren is 113. And I have been seeing a few words, particularly between Tauri and McLaren. And I got a message by, I think it was Blake, saying in this podcast, just involve us in the beef. Do you mind just mentioning our name in this little beef? Could McLaren be brought into this fight? Like I said, they're about 100 points ahead, but they have taken a lot of hits recently. Like I talked about, one of the replacements is Koi. They're yet to sign either Division 1 seats. I would argue that Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri currently potentially have a better lineup. It's close. Is it 100 points worthy close in eight rounds?
You know what, Blake, you're gonna get your wish. You're washed. Your team's washed. You're gonna lose your P2. You're gonna flop. You're gonna fall down. Alfa Romeo. The Alphas are coming. The Alphas are coming to make you not Beta Tauri, not Beta Romeo. No, it's Beta McLaren on the way. It's happening. It's coming. You're gonna lose it. You're gonna bottle it. It's over for you. There's the beef. You wanted your name mentioned. I'm dragging it in this podcast. It's happening.
I'm very interested to see whether that gap gets smaller, because it's a big gap. But I think that both the Alphas are pushing each other to be better with this. I mean, you can tell it. I mean, Matt's not even the team principal. He's the temporary team principal, and he's throwing shots at Dodo. You know what I mean? There is truly something beginning here.
Yeah. And rivalries in all sports aspects kind of do this. You think about, I'll use MMA examples, like Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. Sorry, I said Nick Diaz there. Their rivalry brought better versions of each other out. There's countless examples throughout sport. Verstappen and Hamilton, to get more specific to racing, they bring the best of each other out. They push each other to find new territories, to find new grounds. They've more motivation. When it's when you're just fighting for a position and you're mates with all the people you're fighting with, it's almost hard to kind of like motivate to get that killer instinct. You know for a fact that any chance either Alphas get to attack the other one, bring them down, report them for an incident, pit lane cuts with tires on tracks, any mistake that any of these teams make, the other one's going to be jumping at, which makes a very interesting scenario where both teams have to be perfect, because they just purely out of knowing that whatever any small micro mistake that they make, the other team's going to be looking at and trying to capitalize on. And McLaren have the pressure to maintain the gap. So McLaren don't really have that rivalry themselves, where they haven't really got someone on their back chasing them as much. So I think that while the alpha fight's happening and they're like swapping over and over, they're slowly going to get closer and closer and closer to McLaren. So I think, actually, to be honest, as a joking aside, I think the fight could potentially come into it, which actually segues me onto a question I have for you, Avi.
This is the first time it's done, I think.
Who do you... Without, you're not allowed to look. You're not allowed to look. But obviously, we know the overall constructors. We know the overall constructors' positions. In terms of penalty points, do you have any idea which teams are the most and the least on the penalty point front? Because it's very, very interesting. Any guesses on the first? Any guesses on the last?
First meaning most or least?
First meaning most penalty points, last being the least amount of penalty points. So obviously, like, it's not the table you want to be first in, but we'll say first and last for that one.
Well, naturally, I think that Ferrari have the least penalty points. That is my pretty assured. I'm getting a point for this answer. Is Ferrari 10th?
Is Ferrari? No, Ferrari is not 10th. I will say you're in the right ballpark. They're 9th.
Okay.
With 16 penalty points. Across the whole team.
16? Where are we getting 16? Who's getting all these penalty points?
I think it's like I have 2. JB has, I think, 2. I think it's just like 2 here and there. You know what I mean?
I mean, to be fair, if you
got maybe.
I think if you compare it, because in my head I'm comparing it to a full team, like 12 is a lot, that's a race ban. 16 sounds like a lot, all it takes is every driver's up 2.
For comparison, will the team in 5th, for example, 26 penalty points. The team in 1st, 42. So
40.
There's a kind of...
Oh, could it be Aston Martin is the question. That was the joke. That was the recurring joke. Aston Martin will be up there. I will say, I think McLaren McLaren actually have that many dangerous drivers. I'm going to say McLaren is 10th. Ferrari is 9th. First, what's the most dangerous? I would say Aston Martin, but they've not been too bad. Alfa Romeo is lingering there. I think that Alfie and Ziagli are bringing in the heavy penalty points from Division 1. I'm going to say...
So there's a slight weighting on the fact that any driver that's not part of the team right now won't appear on this statistic. So you have to take into consideration the current lineup as well. But I'll tell you now, because you're so far off. The team in 10th with the least amount of penalty points is Aston Martin. They have 9 penalty points across their team right now. The least amount of penalty points. Aston Martin have 9 penalty points across their team.
What was the point of my TikTok? What was the point of the joke?
It was only HA Gamer, and most of his penalty points came from. He had 15 alone.
Boomboy got one.
He had
Bahrain,
several quality. Say again.
Boomboy had some in Bahrain. He took Koyi out turn 1.
And Boomboy is now an AlphaTauri driver.
It gets moved across. Okay, but that's why Aston Martin has none.
It's your current lineup. It's your current lineup.
Oh, okay, right. Current lineup I'm in. Right. Okay, I should look at this. Ferrari, you said a 9th. Aston Martin a 10th. Fine. McLaren have Koyi.
I want the top 3.
So
I want the top.
Bun. Haas. Benignu has been a dirty boy. He's got like 8, I think, and they've got Tycho. Tycho's not actually been too bad this season, in fairness. Aya has not been great. Pau, I think, it might have picked up 1 or 2. So I think Haas will be up there. Williams will be all over the shop. I think Williams will be up there as one of the best. I think Williams 3rd. Is Williams 3rd?
Give me your top 3. Give me your top 3.
What is it of most penalty points? Okay.
Yeah, so you got Williams 3rd. Who's 2nd? Who's 1st?
Well, Red Bull sticks out to me because they've got Toby Monkey, Boomboy, Matt, and that's 3 that are, and Jace, who are all quite.
Toby.
Sorry.
You said Red Bull have Toby Monkey. That's Tauri.
Sorry, Tam and Tauri. Tauri have 4 quite big names for instance. Red Bull aren't great either. Pistol Peter harvested them in Monza. Or Red Bull will be up there. Okay, I'm thinking Red Bull, in no particular order, Red Bull, Tauri, and either Alfa Romeo or Williams. It could be Haas. Goodness me, this is difficult. Okay, we're going to say Alfa Romeo.
So it's not fun, is it? It's not fun being on the other side of the questions, Avi.
This is not fun at all. Okay, I'm going to say... Corbyn's not been too bad, actually, in terms of penalty points. I don't think he has. Rosman has been on the bad end of things. You know what? Okay, right. My top 3 are gonna be. I don't know if they're top, if anything, but I'm gonna say.
I want an order. I don't want no specific order. I want 3rd, 2nd, 1st.
Okay. I'm saying Tauri, Red Bull, Alfa Romeo, and then 4th Haas.
None of those teams are in the top 3.
What?
I'm reading you the order now, so I'm gonna go bottom to 1st.
I'm so lost.
In 10th, we have Aston Martin with 9. Then we have
fair play to them because they bundled Boomboy and HA.
9th, we have Scuderia Ferrari with 16 penalty points.
Fine.
So yeah. I think if you would look at like attendance and if you look at attendance, if you look at like lineup changes, we're probably the cleanest team. On like if we do like a similar equation you did with the budgets and stuff, we're probably claim that spot. So you were right in that kind of guess. Only 3 penalty points ahead is Alpine in 8th. Obviously, Koyi going across is a big change.
I hear that. There's a lot of drivers that I expected would be more dangerous. And fair and play, they obviously they've dropped Koyi. But Zimonex and Nico are sometimes on the bad side of things. So fair play, don't be again. Yeah, fine.
But they haven't been racing that much. 7th, Alfa Romeo with 21 penalty points. It's just been Alfie. It's just been Alfie. 6, we have AlphaTauri. So even in the penalty point fight, they're beside each other. Tauri have 25. Romeo have 21. 1 more penalty point. Sharing 4th and 5th, we have Red Bull and Haas on 26.
McLaren are dangerous.
Mercedes are 3rd with 31.
Hang on. Where are they getting
39
their
points.
Right.
Oh yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know that one driver just maybe turning into everyone every race.
It's Williams and
McLaren 39 points in P2, and Williams
39.
in P1 with 42 penalty points is Williams in P1. So just a quick rundown there: Williams, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Haas, Tauri, Romeo, Alpine, Ferrari, Aston Martin. There's your top 10 in penalty points.
Before I hold my hands up and say I'm stupid, I got none of that right, I should know better, I will just mention Alec managed to get half of the most amount of penalty points in the entire team in 9 races in KRL. That's all I'm going to say. He managed to pick out the four drivers from the most dangerous team and match their penalty points in 9 races. Anyway, shameless, little sour moment out of the way. Did not expect that. Where is it all coming from? Koi? Or has Five Wise got some maybe, or Liam? Where are they coming from?
I think it's just a spread of just pick up. I know Blake's got a few. Like Blake got one for moving on the braking, so that's free immediately.
Moving got one. It's
I think McLaren have got more big pens than lots of small ones, so it's kind of like binging it up that kind of way. But then even just like the thing with McLaren though is if you compare it to completed races, so like driver attends. Ferrari have had 63 drivers attend races. McLaren have had 60. So in terms of the penalty point disparity between us and McLaren, it's not looking good for McLaren because Williams are 6th with 54 attended. Mercedes are, and you might think that the less drivers, the less races you attend, the worse it's going to be. But if you think about it as the more races you do, the more chance you have to make a mistake. Like if you take out my Monza race. And my season's just a lot better because like Monza went so horribly wrong for me. I also got the penalty points for I misjudged my delta, had to slam the brakes on before the first Lesmo, and then Reese didn't anticipate it because then I had to go round me off track, and I got the penalty for that. Fair enough. They take out Monza and Ferrari's looking a lot better. My whole season's looking a lot better with Matt Monza. So the more races you do, the more risk you kind of put yourself under for score those points. Alfa Romeo 58 attended, Tauri 56, Aston 55. So Aston being so low with so many attended, very good job. Williams 54, Mercedes 48, Alpine 46, Red Bull 45, Haas 44. So it's just very interesting when you compare those numbers together. McLaren have been quite a dirty team, it turns out. And Williams as well, being 6th in the attended and first in the. It's not a good ratio. Not a good ratio for them. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I completely got that wrong. I did a bit of a you there. We clearly don't know the teams as well as we thought we did. Clearly.
It's not as easy when you get just thrown a random question at you with no preparation, and you just have to think about the spot. But yeah,
it's interesting. We're going to move on to our next little subheading, and it is, I've called it, the mouse versus the 2 elephants. What a badass name. Williams battling Mercedes and Red Bull for 5th place. First of all, how do you think this has come about? Why is this a situation where Williams, who had half the budget of Mercedes and Red Bull, are now not only fighting them, but beating them in the overall Constructors' Championship? The gap between them are 61 points. And as of recording this mid-season break, Mercedes and Red Bull are on exactly equal at 426. They're beating them by a substantial margin. Like that's nearly 3 wins they're beating them by, which is very good. Obviously, a lot of that has come from their Division 4 lineup. That doesn't carry a team, just one lineup, one division. How on earth has this come about, and what do you think has caused this interesting shock?
Management. Stein has been just a more active, more involved, more direct manager than Red Bull and Mercedes have had. Tano hasn't been what he was before. He's been quite distant. Red Bull have had a TP change, so Neb hasn't really had the time to kind of find his own feet. Banjo was quite, I don't want to say inactive, but not as directly involved, I'll say. Mercedes and Red Bull have had quite a hands-off management style, while Stein's been a bit more direct. He's always put drivers on the line. He's always kind of got reserves. He's always putting those kind of figures together. So, I just think it's that's just difference in team principle. Team principle, making sure there's seats in. Like I remember the first half of the season, it was almost rare to see a Mercedes on the grid. It's gotten better. It's gotten absolutely better, but it's just and then I mean Red Bull also sacrificed the division. I know for a fact they made a conscious decision to sacrifice the division for the sake of better drivers elsewhere, and it hasn't really worked out for what they wanted elsewhere in the standing. So, and that's why they've had the problem is now is they've now invested in their Div 2, but by doing so that's why they're in so much debt, because they've had to almost, it's like Mercedes and their sidepod philosophies in real life. They've had to revert their strategy now, and all the time they've spent trying to make their no sidepod philosophy work is now time lost.
Yeah.
So this plan they had of we'll throw Div 2 to the wind and focus on all the other ones and win all those just hasn't worked out the way they wanted it to. So yeah, I think those are two major factors. Stein's just been doing a really good job.
Yeah, I think that's a very good sidepod analogy, actually. Because Christella was signed at the start of the season in Red Bull. She moved down a division, and they didn't replace her, which is completely fair. The fact that they focused on the other 3 divisions, 1, 3, and 4, is completely fair enough. They've got relatively solid drivers in all of them. The fact that they're losing to Williams, who didn't go for that strategy, he had drivers in all divisions, and still managed to beat them, is worrying, of course. We spoke about Red Bull and Neb previously. Looking at the drivers in particular, though, of course, we talked about the Armin signing. We haven't talked about Neb as a driver, though. Hasn't been the easiest season for him personally. He's spun on, I think, the majority of races. Made silly mistakes. He's had 2 drive-throughs, one in Monza, one in Hungary. And both of us have been team principals. You're currently team principal. I was of McLaren for a short while, and I'm sure I'll be back in that spot in a team at some point in the future. So we know we have that almost pressure of you're so focused on what the other divisions are doing. You want to be having the best. You're stressing they're not 1 and 2. You know what I mean? You're stressing where they are and stuff like that. And you also stress a lot about your performances. At least I did. I don't want to let the team down. I'm the one supposed to be pushing them forward. Is that potentially getting to Neb? Because his performances even before team principal weren't fantastic. He is third in the championship, fair enough. He's had some good moments. He's also had some poor ones. What do we think about Neb?
Maybe to be honest, because there's been almost degree of like the mistakes he's been making recently. Like first half of the season, the mistakes he were making were because I know Neb very well. He will always do something what I call goofy. He'll have some spooky ass setup with low wings. He'll have some weird start on the soft strategy. He's always that kind of guy. He will throw a spanner in the works. But recently, so I think the mistakes that have been happening there have just been like Qatar, he ran quite low wings and spun. Australia, he ran quite low wings and spun. But more recently, I feel like the mistakes have almost been seemingly coming from desperation. He obviously the drive-through in Monza was jumping the start, so just so keen to get off the line first. So he jumps the start. In Hungary, he got the drive-through for speeding on the safety car because he was trying to get ahead of JB, who was boxing, and the safety car came out. P1 was already past the start-finish line, so there was going to be a full lap of Delta anyway. Neb managed to get, like, JB had just passed the pit lane when the safety car came out. Neb hadn't. Neb was able to dive in. Typically, that would be an advantage because you'd have either A, the undercut, or B, you'd have the cars in front of you'd be able to rejoin on the safety car. But because P1 was so far ahead that he was told to pass the safety car because the safety car wasn't able to get out and positioned in time, that the full lap was done on the Delta. So everyone was at the exact same pace. Everyone was told to do the exact same lap time. That's what the Delta is you have to do a certain lap time. And the Neb tried to jump JB in the box, and like he went flying down the main straight, just got past him, slammed on the brakes, and just at the end of his braking zone, on the middle of the straight, got a drive-through penalty for speeding because his Delta was off. And yes, he gained the place, but he lost everything as a result. And then tried to serve it first lap of the safety car coming in, which has always been a sticky thing to do in this game. And it's, like I said, it's just seemingly desperation that's been kicking in a lot with him. He's, to gain that place on JB, who is now on like 1 lap fresher tyres. Like, what were you really gaining from that? Apart from 1 position, was it worth risking the drive-through? Because he would have been quite far under the Delta to gain that. he would have been able to gauge where he was coming around that final corner where JB was in the box. He would have seen JB leaving the pit lane. Like, not leaving the pit lane, but leaving his own box and heading down towards the exit of the pit lane when he went down that straight. Yeah. Just give it up. One place is not worth risking a drive-through penalty. But so why you then start questioning what's making those decisions happen? Like, what subconscious pressure is he feeling? What subconscious force is playing into his mind to make these? Every position is this important to me that I'm trying to gain a position off the start so badly I'm going to get a drive-through penalty. I'm trying to get I'm going to try and gain a position on the safety car so badly I'm going to get a drive-through penalty and ruin my race in the process. What's going on there? Because he recovered well with Monza because he had the late safety car, which I don't want to talk about personally with that late safety car. But with Hungary, he finished 13th. So, I mean, when you're third in the drivers, finishing 13th is not how you stay there. It's not how you challenge the ones in front of you. So yeah, there's like I said, I'm not going to say it is desperation. It just seems like it might be, which is a problem.
And that is a mentality, and I think the mentality that drivers have just reflects over the whole team. You've got either 7 or 8, well, if you're driving it, 7 other drivers and their entire XRS career on your shoulders. And it's very much dependent on what you do. It's something to what I mentioned about Cajun and Aston Martin right at the start of the podcast. I mentioned about how they need to be giving this flower water and seeds and all this and that, all the stuff it needs. And I mean, for me personally, I've become. I was in McLaren, of course, in KRL. My mentality, my driving style, my mistakes have completely minimalised coming into this team, based just on your mentality, on your engineering. I've made my mistakes. I have. I've spun twice with collisions with other people that maybe could have been avoided. I've got 0 penalty points. I'm one of the few drivers who's been safe in every of the 8 races we've done. I haven't missed a race, and I think a lot of that has been from your leadership. And it's worrying to see maybe a team principal and how impactful what they do, not just from the signings, not just from sending a setup into a chat, but your mentality, your characteristics, and how that rubs off on your team. And I would hate to see Neb as potentially a variable in that, because he's a lovely guy. I really like him. Of course, he's an ex-Ferrari driver. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to share a team with him in my time, but I hope to in the future. And I don't like to see Red Bull struggling in almost every aspect, which is what they're doing right now. Which sucks. In terms of
speaking of struggling though, I have another question for you, Abby. This is another little segue I've conjured.
I'm ready this time.
You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
He's standing up. He's getting ready. Hoodie's gonna come off in a minute. We're gonna see the guns out.
Knock my phone over. Yeah. Let's go.
So, in terms of struggles, and obviously, this is a very, what I'm going to pose you as a question is this is a very instrumental factor in racing.
Right.
DNFs. Which team do you feel has the most DNFs and potentially throwing away the most points? We'll do the same thing again. Give me a top 3. Who do you think's last?
And this is current lineups.
This is current lineups. Drivers who have got who first will be with the most DNFs, and by the way, it is a 9-point gap between first and second, and then everyone else is within 1 of each other. So who do you think has been the most reliable team for crossing the finish line?
It's gotta be Ferrari. Has Ferrari had a single one? Because Vlad I know had 2, one in Monza, one in wherever else it was. And China. This one
will be over the whole season because it will be going off the results. So obviously, Vlad will have got the DNFs in Ferrari seats, which will be tracking on the results.
In what car they're in, basically.
Yes. So exactly. So it will be DNFs that, for example, if we're going to say Ferrari, DNFs that Ferrari have suffered in the races.
The only ones I can remember a Ferrari car was 2, both of Vlad's. Has Ferrari only had 2? Have I got the number right as well? I'm going to say Ferrari is the most reliable team, so 10th.
Ferrari is correct, but they've had 5. I personally don't know where they've all come from, but I think there might be in sprints as well. Sprints might be something to consider.
Bays and Monza, forgot that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah. Okay,
and there might be a sprint in there as well. I think has JB had one? I think JB might have had one.
You might have had one in a sprint.
Well,
yeah, that's still 4. Where are they coming from?
Well, we'll go. I'm sure we'll find them. I will go and find them. But yeah, Ferrari,
maybe reserve.
Ferrari
maybe
are,
reserve.
Ferrari are 10th with 5.
Right.
There's 2 teams above them. 2 teams that have shared positions for a lot of time. Any guesses with that?
Is it Alfa Romeo
on
and
6?
AlphaTauri? Interesting.
It actually is 8 and 9. 8 and 9. Both with 6. Yeah, they've both been there 8 and 9. Interesting though as well. We'll go more at the top of the table because 5, 6, and 7 all have 9. 4 have 10. 3 and 2 have 11, and first has 20. So have you got any guesses? Any guesses on those teams?
Haas is 20.
Haas are first, yeah. Haas is 20. Yeah.
They've got Powell who gives up they've got Powell who gives up after any inconvenience. Oliver's had a couple. Aya's had a couple. They've got Tycho on the team, so enough said. Ben's had a handful, I think a couple, and I remember Khaled crashed in thinking Tim, of course. Yeah, but actually every single one of their drivers, I think, is other than Epic, is probably some part of that, some variable in that.
And even in that Epic got lucky that he did. Was it?
It was in the last 3 laps.
80% of the race.
Spain.
80% of the race you have to do, but yeah, in Spain.
I don't think it's that.
He didn't.
I don't think it's 80% of the race. I think it's just the last 5 laps or something like that.
The rule is like a percentage of the race you have to do to get classified, but then that always turns out to be the last 3 laps in a 50% race. So
okay, so yeah, I remember he crashed in Spain, wasn't it, at the end? So that was lucky.
Yeah.
So Haas, I think, is the most. And then so going from the bottom, you said that 6, 7, 8 have the same.
6, 7, 8 all have 9.
And then what's 5? 10.
5, 6. Sorry. 8 and 9 have 6, which is the 2 alphas. 7, 5, 6. I don't know why I said it like that. 7, 6, 5 all have 9. 4 is on 10. 3 and 2 is on 11.
Yeah. Oh, it's so close.
It is, and it's interesting as well because you'll notice that when we have all the answers revealed, you'll see that there's one notable team in there that's probably throwing away very crucial points.
I'm writing down these teams. So it's not Ferrari, not the 2 Alphas, and not Haas.
Yeah,
so the other teams
the bottom
are
3.
So McLaren. We haven't spoken about McLaren, Williams, Merc, RB, Aston,
Alpine.
I think Aston are going to be bad. So we've got, what is it, an 11, 2 10s, and 3 9s?
11, 11, 10, 3 9s.
11, 11, 10. Okay, I think the 11s are going to be... Aston will be one of them. I think Williams based on penalty points. But that's not really, that's kind of committing things. That's not killing things. Or like dying, I should say. It's difficult. I'm going to say Red Bull. I think Red Bull are okay. I'm going to say Red Bull are one of the 9s. I'm going to say Aston are one of the 11s. I think that McLaren have had a lot of bad reserves recently, so I'm going to say McLaren's the other 11. Then, don't tell me yet. Then we've got Williams, Merc, and Alpine left. So I'm going to say Williams is the 10. No. You said the throwaway points. Alpine's the 10, and Williams and Merc are the 9s.
Okay.
Am I close?
Going from you're a lot closer this time than you were with penalty points. You're a lot closer. So obviously Ferrari have 5 and 10th. Alpha and Alpha are both in 6 and 9 and 8 and 9. 7th,
lovely.
6th and 5th, all with 9, is Mercedes, Alpine,
got that right,
and Red Bull.
Yeah. Woo-hoo-hoo! No, I've got that wrong. No, I put Alpine as the 10 one. Oh, it's Williams.
Fourth with Aston with 10 DNFs.
Oh, so it's Mercedes and Williams.
And McLaren and Williams are second and third.
So I got McLaren right.
Second. And I think what's really notable from that is that McLaren and the difference between the Tauris, not the Tauris, the Alphas of AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo and the McLarens, like 11 DNFs versus 6. You know what I mean? 5 more DNFs over 8 races, or well, not say 8 races, 8 times 4 races, 8 weekends. Like, that's a big difference in point losses. It's a big difference. Obviously, Haas without those DNFs, even if they were on a similar number, even if Haas were on 12, they would probably be above Aston, close to Mercedes and Red Bull.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a fair thing that there's a reasonable thing to expect to happen. So, big problem for Haas to fix. But McLaren second with 11 DNFs is... That's not how you surmount a charge for P1. I know their ambitions are P1, and I'm gonna talk dirt on McLaren for a little bit, but that's a major flaw to have in your team. When you look at the teams that are directly below you and closing, and the one above you are all the bottom 3, and then you're there in second place with or joint second with 11th with Williams, who are 5th. That's a worrying statistic that I think Blake's going to really have to pay attention to, because maybe the drivers are being a bit too aggressive, maybe the reserves aren't being picked properly, maybe there's a bit too much rushing, maybe the heads are going a little bit, maybe there's a bit of impatience, who knows? But maybe it's just mistakes, maybe it's just skill issues, as they say. But yeah, I just thought that was a very interesting one, with McLaren being so far up there, with the Alphas and myself being at the bottom.
Interesting enough as well, Williams, I've got that wrong twice now in terms of Williams being more DNFs and more penalty points than I expected them to have. So that's slightly worrying on that side of things, for sure. Cool game. I got better.
For a team that's 5th,
got a little better that time.
For a team that's 5th, it's not too concerning. Because...
But could they have been closer to the Tauris?
They could be, but I feel like as well, when we consider it, they would have to be doing an Alfa Romeo level job to be above 5th. Like, if they were close to the Tauris, we'd be sitting there talking about them the way we've been talking about Alfa Romeos. And I think being 5th in the championship is a great result anyway. And I can point to where the improvement is going to be, which is post-race penalties and DNFs for Williams. That's the bridge they need to now gap to close up to the front 4.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely something for the team principals to look at. Both of them with very key positions that are looking at going to be a lot of relevance going into the final few rounds of the season, for sure. Battling in the OCC and in their individual constructors as well. The final point I wanted to make, actually, was about Haas. They have picked it up. And you spoke about this earlier as well in when we were talking about the contracts and stuff like that. They have potentially, now that Calix picked it up, they've got potentially a race winner in every single division. And they're currently sat in 9th in the OCC. They certainly did not have that kind of form at the start of the season. We did not expect that from him. I'll tell you what, fair respects to Ben. Oh, man's up. Fair respects to Ben. And I'm not going to reveal admin call stuff in a public place, because that's not a very good idea. But we did talk about Ben in the admin chat, and he spoke about interest in being a team principal and being one of the biggest team principals, maybe going to McLaren, because at the time that was a relevant point. And at the time, we responded saying, well, Haas are lower down in the Constructors' Championship. They're not performing the best. There's other teams that... For example, if you remember, actually, I made this point at the start of the season. I think it was Williams, Haas and Alpine all started with the same budget. Currently, Williams is 5th, Haas and Alpine are 9 and 10. I think it was them. And that was, evident that if we were going to pick a team principal to go up to a bigger team, it would be Stein in this case, you know what I mean? And Ben's really picked it up. Because these signings, bringing in Pau, bringing in Epic, bringing in Aya, who got moved down a division, found the budget to do that. Calix obviously sat in a good place. Haas are one of 3 teams who are in debt, 40 million. Not great. Mm-hmm. And looking at their positioning in all the constructors, in fact, they won't be able to repay that very comfortably. Do you think that they will be able to repay it comfortably, or a bit more comfortably, in 8 races or 8 weekends' time, in 32 races, given the form that they've got right now? Because they locked out the front row in Hungary, they dominated in Division 1 in Spain. What do we think? Because it's a really exciting aspect for me, Haas, and what the form they've been in.
For me, I'm looking at next season for Haas. I think they're going to be if they can hit the ground running with it, and they can more importantly keep most of their lineup, they're going to be in the midfield next season for sure. At least has to be. I think they're going to be the next Alfa Romeo in terms of the improvements they make. Yeah, I feel like Haas this season, they just need to kind of not so much lick their wounds, but kind of knuckle under a little bit, and just focus on trying to make the best out of this season to bring in an extra money and extra cash to just future-proof. But for me, it's next.
Yeah, for sure. It could be interesting. What is the long cook term for Ben? Is he looking to become one of the biggest team principals, pushing for one of the highest spots? Because it's looking like he's really picked it up, and he could be in one of the spots to do that.
Absolutely. Quick fun fact that I've just found before we segue on to the next point. Just random quick fun fact. Did you know that my fastest lap in Hungary is Ferrari's first fastest lap of the season across all divisions?
Woo! That's because you got me in the team, mate. I'm never gonna get one.
It's even with Casper not getting one. That's the thing that surprised me the most. Casper hasn't got one. Dylan hasn't got one.
Well, I mean, when you're fighting at the front, you don't really get the option. To be in fairness,
I'm leading the thing. McLaren have six. McLaren have the most fastest laps.
I'll say, the difference between fastest laps in real life and fastest laps in league racing is a lot of them. I would say probably 80 or maybe 90% of them are based on a driver that has crashed and is doing it just because why not? And the closest I think I've got to my memory to focusing on it was Monza. And obviously you weren't engineering for Monza. Monza, I was rapido. I will not hear it. I was quickest on track. I unfortunately got the strategy wrong. Went for soft instead of a hard to take it to the end for the second stint. I was cutting through people as if they weren't there. Like genuine, like no competition. I repeatedly got fastest lap. I think it was 6 laps consecutively, which is unreal in Monza, where the degradation is not great. And then 5 wise got into a crash, pitted and took it, just like that. And I was low key frustrated. I know it's 1 point, but it's annoying. You know what I mean? And that's probably testament to why Casper doesn't, because he's always at the front. You know what I mean? It's almost like fastest lap for a team is availability of being in a position to just pit for softs and do it. You know what I mean?
I just found it interesting. Because mine came from Hungary, obviously, where I finished third as well, doing the 2-stop strategy. But I just found it very, very interesting. I just found it very, very interesting how that kind of played out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this 3-part podcast. I hope you enjoyed it all. Should be cooking on all the weekends. We would all normally have races. Hope you enjoyed the staff race, which is going to happen Isn't that weird? Everyone watching knows what happened in the staff race, but we don't.
Yeah.
Isn't that? It's a bit funky.
It's gonna be
how did we do? How was my commentary? How did Raven do? Did he crash? Probably not. Did he get a penalty point?
Cook everyone in F2. Cook, you're all gonna get washed. We're gonna Australia 4 DRS zones. I'm coming.
I hope you enjoyed the staff race. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Us just chatting a bit of stuff about inside the league. As I say in every commentary, in every podcast, the chaos is not over yet. So we have 8 more races, 8 more weekends, 32 more races, so much more chaos. The battles, the rivalries are there. I can't wait to join you in Belgium. We're going to Spa. We're going to one of the most famous tracks in the world. For a reason, we need to have a big return to the track.
Rainy Hills.
Any more words from yourself, Mr. Raven West?
The rainy hills of Spa wait. Bring on the rain. I love the rain. I love the interconditions. Bring it on. But no, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for tuning in. If you've listened to all these episodes all the way through, if you listened to every podcast episode up to this point, you are a G. You're a special mention from my heart. If you tune into the streams, if you've subscribed to the Twitch, if you've anything, any sort of contribution you've made, you're a legend. You're a G. Shout out to you specifically. We hope to continue cooking. We hope to continue doing what we're doing. We hope we're here for many more seasons. We're only getting started, as I say.
Yes, sir.
We're only getting started. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you again. I won't repeat the soppy rant from the start, but I hope you enjoy the rest of the content for this season. Hope you enjoy the future seasons. And if you're also not part of the league, we hope to see you in here soon racing. But yeah, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah. Get yourself on the Twitch, the TikTok, the YouTube, and of course the Discord server. We look forward to welcoming you in to our league. See you soon.